Bells toll softly across a fog-covered city. Rome, Paris, London, it didn't matter. Somewhere in the candlelit corridors of a cathedral, a man in robes leaned close to whisper secrets that could topple a king. This was the world of the papal spies, the silent eyes and ears of God's chosen men on earth. Before we dive deep into the shadows of the Vatican's secret intelligence network, tell me, where in the world are you watching from right now? And what time is it there? Let's see how far the whispers of history have traveled. And hey, if you love uncovering the dark, hidden side of history that textbooks never dared to mention, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's step into a world where the cross and the crown collided, and only spies could decide who survived. When we think of medieval power, we picture kings and knights, not priests with daggers hidden under their robes. But in truth, no crown could rule without the Church's blessing, and no pope could reign without information. From the late 11th century onward, the papacy developed one of the most sophisticated intelligence systems in Europe, a web of informants, monks, and couriers who worked not for gold, but for God. Or so they claimed. Their mission? To protect the Church, monitor kings, and uncover heresy before it could spread like fire through the faith. Yet behind those sacred motives lay something darker: espionage, politics, and manipulation at a level that would make even modern intelligence agencies take notes. It began with letters, thousands of them, sent by papal emissaries across kingdoms. The Vatican had perfected coded writing centuries before European courts even grasped the concept of encryption. Every envoy carried secret seals and ciphered texts, and within these lines of divine Latin, empires rose and fell. In medieval Europe, religion was politics. The Pope wasn't just a spiritual leader, he was the ultimate kingmaker. If a monarch defied the Church, like King Henry IV did in the 11th century, he risked excommunication, rebellion, or assassination. And who would enforce these threats? The king's whisperers, agents posing as confessors, monks, or diplomats. They listened to every secret, every sin, and passed it upward, not to heaven, but to Rome. One of the earliest examples of this holy espionage emerged during the investiture controversy, the brutal power struggle between Pope Gregory VII and Emperor Henry IV. On the surface, it was about who had the right to appoint bishops. Beneath it, it was a shadow war of letters, spies, and informants. The Pope had agents embedded in royal courts, men who wore crosses by day and delivered secret messages by night. One such network was led by Peter Damian, a reformer who used a combination of confessions, rumors, and written intelligence to expose corruption among bishops loyal to the emperor. In return, Henry IV deployed his own network of spies within Rome, infiltrating the Vatican's inner circle. What played out was one of Europe's earliest examples of counterintelligence, centuries before the concept even existed. And here's the genius part. The papal state didn't need swords. It had information. With a few letters, the Pope could turn nobles against their king, ignite uprisings, or break alliances, all from the safety of the Holy See. By the 13th century, during the height of papal power, the Church expanded its intelligence apparatus dramatically. Monastic orders became its perfect cover. The Dominicans, tasked with defending orthodoxy, quietly doubled as investigators and later as enforcers. Their job was to hunt down heresy, but in practice, it meant interrogation, infiltration, and surveillance. The Inquisition that followed wasn't just about burning books or heretics. It was an information war, one where every whispered confession, every rumor in a marketplace, and every unguarded letter could decide whether a soul lived or died. Spies were everywhere. Tavern owners, merchants, innkeepers, even nuns were paid or persuaded to report suspicious conversations. Some did it for faith, others for fear. And while kings struggled to gather troops, the Vatican had already built a network of intelligence stretching from Jerusalem to France. In those centuries, letters carried more power than armies, and the Pope's couriers were untouchable. Protected by holy immunity, they passed through borders freely, invisible yet deadly. They were the Vatican's codebreakers, couriers, and silent watchers, the backbone of Europe's first true intelligence system. But information has a cost, and soon the papacy's spies began to realize that power could be more intoxicating than faith itself. During the Avignon papacy in the 14th century, when the popes lived in exile in France, rival factions within the church spied on each other, cardinals hiring informants to watch cardinals. Rome became a city of whispers. One day's prayer could become the next day's blackmail. One chilling story comes from 1378, the year of the Western Schism, when two popes, one in Rome and one in Avignon, both claimed divine authority. Each had his own intelligence network. Each spread propaganda, forged letters, and accused the other of heresy. It was, quite literally, a holy war of spies. Letters were intercepted. Priests were murdered. Confessions were altered. The faithful no longer knew who spoke for God and who worked for power. Even more dangerously, kings began to use the Pope's methods against him. In England, King Edward I and later Edward III created their own clerical informant systems, spies disguised as churchmen, reporting to the crown. The lines between church and state blurred completely. At this point, the king's whisperers were everywhere. Some worked for the Vatican, others for monarchs, and a few for both, double agents moving between altars and thrones. In secret chambers, messages were written in invisible ink made from lemon juice, sealed with wax marked by holy insignia, and hidden inside hollowed prayer books. Monks who once copied scripture now copied cipher keys. Faith had become a weapon. By the 15th century, as Renaissance Italy bloomed, the Vatican spies adapted. Under Pope Alexander VI, from the infamous Borgia family, the Church's intelligence system became outright political espionage. Cesare Borgia, the Pope's son, ran a spy network that spanned Florence, Milan, and Naples. He recruited courtesans, priests, and artists, anyone who could overhear noble secrets. Letters from the period even reference payments made to the eyes of Rome, code for informants embedded in foreign courts. This is where the line between holy intelligence and organized espionage vanished forever. And yet, the Vatican never officially acknowledged this shadow world. No records, no confessions, just results. Kingdoms swayed, alliances broken, enemies damned. But here's what makes it so fascinating. The papal intelligence system never truly ended. Its methods, coded letters, secret diplomacy, embedded informants, evolved into the practices used by Renaissance states, then by modern Europe. In a sense, today's intelligence agencies were born from the confessionals and couriers of the Church. The king's whisperers didn't just spy for God. They built the foundation of global espionage as we know it. The next time you see a political alliance form in secret, or a government leak make headlines, remember, it all began with a whispered confession in a dark cathedral. And that's only the beginning. Because what came next, the secret archives, the hidden Vatican dossiers, and the deadly wars fought in the name of faith, would reveal a side of the Church the world was never meant to see. So stay tuned. Next, we'll uncover the black chambers of the Vatican, the spies who betrayed popes, and the secrets that still echo beneath St. Peter's Basilica. Beneath the marble floors of the Vatican, there were rooms no pilgrim ever saw. Chambers without windows, walls lined with letters that could start or stop wars. And within them, men who did not wear armor or crowns, but carried secrets sharper than any sword. By the late Middle Ages, the Vatican wasn't just a spiritual empire. It was an intelligence superpower. And its weapon? The apostolic camera, an administrative office that collected more than just taxes. Beneath ledgers and scrolls, it compiled coded reports, sent by bishops, abbots, and priests from every corner of Christendom. Each dispatch began with blessings, but inside it contained information: who was plotting rebellion, who met whom in secret, who whispered doubts about Rome. These were the Church's eyes. The king's whisperers had now become the popes. In the shadows of this network operated figures like Cardinal Albornoz, who in the 14th century built spy rings across northern Italy to track rebellious city-states. He used monasteries as bases of communication, where coded messages were hidden inside hymnals and reliquaries. And then there were the spiritual enforcers, agents of the Holy Office, who turned confessions into a form of surveillance. People believed they were speaking to God. In truth, their words were being funneled to men who could destroy them. During the Inquisition's rise, these informants became critical. A priest could denounce a merchant as a heretic, a rival noble as a devil worshipper, and once accused, few ever survived. The Vatican didn't need proof. It needed control. Confession, once sacred, became the most effective intelligence tool in Europe. But control breeds paranoia. By the time Pope Innocent VIII came to power in the late 1400s, the Church was so infiltrated by spies that even the Pope didn't know who worked for whom. Letters were forged, cipher books were stolen. Rumors whispered by double agents reached the ears of both popes and kings. In Florence, the Medici family, who financed art, but also wars, discovered that even their most trusted priests were on Rome's payroll. In France, King Philip IV had Vatican agents planted in his court, spying on his plans to seize church wealth. When he found out, he struck back, capturing the Pope's knights, and later orchestrating the downfall of the Knights Templar, accusing them of heresy. But beneath that public trial lay a silent truth. It wasn't faith that doomed the Templars. It was intelligence warfare. The Vatican and the Crown had collided in the deadliest spy conflict of the 14th century. And then came a revolution in ink. The Vatican's cryptographers perfected ciphers so complex that entire kingdoms struggled to break them. They used substitution alphabets, numeric codes, and even symbolic encryption, hiding sacred meaning in psalms and prayers. By the Renaissance, popes like Sixtus IV and Alexander VI, Borgia, used these secret codes to manage alliances, assassinations, and blackmail. Cesare Borgia's spy network, known to some historians as the Holy Eye, had agents inside France, Spain, and the Holy Roman Empire. Courtesans seduced diplomats, confessors collected noble secrets, and letters sealed with papal crests carried both blessings and death sentences. One intercepted Borgia cipher in 1503 revealed a chilling line: "The word of God moves swifter when carried by silence." A poetic way of saying, the best spies are those who never speak. As the Church expanded into the New World, its intelligence machine followed. Jesuit missionaries acted not only as teachers and preachers, but as field informants, mapping unknown lands, noting resources, and reporting back on local politics. They wrote letters disguised as theological discussions, but inside, they contained detailed observations about trade, geography, and tribal alliances. The Vatican had turned exploration itself into an act of espionage. Meanwhile, in Europe, the Reformation erupted. Martin Luther's 95 Theses didn't just challenge theology. They triggered one of history's greatest information wars. The Vatican needed to know who supported the rebellion. And once again, the king's whisperers, this time reborn as papal diplomats, went to work. They intercepted letters, bribed printers, and spread counter-propaganda to protect the Church's image. Luther's supporters used the printing press. The Vatican used fear and silence. And in the end, both sides mastered the same art: information control. By the 16th century, this centuries-old spy tradition became institutionalized. The Vatican created the secret archives, officially established in 1612 by Pope Paul V. Its name wasn't meant to sound sinister. Secret simply meant private. But inside those walls were letters, maps, and confessions that no one outside the papal circle was allowed to see. Today, it holds over 85 kilometers of shelves, a literal labyrinth of intelligence from the medieval world. Among its most mysterious contents, coded letters between the Pope and Elizabethan spies, reports on the Inquisition's covert operations, secret correspondences detailing Vatican involvement in medieval diplomacy. Each document tells the same truth. The Church wasn't just saving souls, it was managing power. Some historians even argue that this system of papal intelligence directly influenced the birth of modern espionage. When European kingdoms began forming centralized states, their monarchs copied the Vatican's methods: coded dispatches, embedded agents, black chambers, and information archives. The Pope had, in a way, trained the world in the art of secrecy. The legacy of the King's Whisperers still echoes today in diplomatic couriers, in secret state communications, and in the idea that knowledge equals control. The Church no longer needed swords. It had the truth, or at least, the version of truth it could control. So the next time you walk into a cathedral and hear the faint echo of a whisper, remember, those same walls once carried messages that changed history. Priests and popes once wielded secrets like daggers. And behind every confession, every alliance, every prayer whispered in the dark, there might have been a spy listening. If you made it here, you're part of the few who still listen when history whispers. So tell me, should we open the Vatican's secret archives next? Or dig into how the papal spies survived into the modern age? Drop your thoughts below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because the next story will uncover what the Vatican still doesn't want you to see.